Hello and welcome to the Bravas Podcast. We're going to do something slightly different this time. We're going to talk to someone who wrote an incredibly interesting article about how real estate is changing. And Keith, I thought this would be a change for us, but I know you've read it too. It's raised a lot of interesting questions for the luxury home market, hasn't it? And the people that we work with and what they think about.
Yeah, it is very interesting to kind of see some very practical ideas combined with technology ideas for how we are going to live in the new normal.
Okay, well, let me introduce Dima Vitanova. Did I get that right, Dima?
Yes.
Good.
Well, Williams is Vitanova is my maiden name, so Dima Williams.
Well, Dima, thank you very much for joining us. Dima is you're a freelance journalist specializing in the real estate market. Is that fair?
That's correct.
So we found you through a really good article in Mansions Global called Coronavirus Pandemic Prompts Developers to Rethink the Future of Homes. And that's really what we wanted to talk to you about. And I wondered if, at a sort of higher level, how you think the virus that we've all been living through has changed what you see in the real estate market.
In terms of, well, first of all, thank you for having me. And I guess that question can be answered in like several ways. Are you talking about home design and architecture, or just buying and selling and what people are looking for?
Well, let's start on the buying and selling. What are you seeing going on in the marketplace?
Yeah, well, there was like just a recent report released by Realtor.com. So there's some positive signs already happening in terms of new listings or new sellers coming on the market after initially a lot of them retreated and inventory just decreased by 50% in some markets. Prices are staying stable just because there's not enough homes on the market and buyers haven't really pulled out as much as sellers did. So there's always been demand from buyers even during the coronavirus. We had markets that weren't impacted as strongly as others, that people were still able to see homes. So demand is there, supply still has some time to recover.
Which of the markets were most affected? Do you have a sense of the geographies in the US that were most hit?
Yeah, well, New York for sure, just because it became a huge viral hotspot. Seattle initially was also, seeing a lot of changes and people not willing to see homes. They've actually handled their outbreak pretty well. So Seattle is on the rebound, but densely populated, huge markets are kind of still struggling, while more suburban or like second, I don't want to say like secondary markets, because like that's how people like to describe them. I don't like that description of first and second or whatever. But smaller markets are performing quite well just because people are trying to escape. People from New York going to Connecticut or Massachusetts or down to Florida. And even though Miami also was impacted, it attracted a lot of New Yorkers trying to social distance, so it's doing well. But on the East Coast, we're seeing the big markets, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, still struggling.
It would seem that a lot of the lack of supply is just people probably not wanting to have other people in their homes. Do you see it recovering very, very quickly as we start to move toward just a higher comfort level with the virus?
I don't know in terms of the pace of recovery and how quickly people will become comfortable letting strangers in their homes. We are already seeing that more sellers are coming on the market at the end of the last couple of weeks of May. More homes were on the market nationally than in March and April. I think people are getting comfortable. I think there are restrictions put in place, masks, gloves, whatever. So I think that is making more people comfortable with the situation and getting people in their in their homes. How fast will that happen? I don't know. Some people are talking about a second wave of the outbreak in the fall, so that might kind of again scare sellers and make them retreat. So I think there's still a little bit of unknown to see how fast they will return.
I wonder whether you think people are looking at their homes differently from the way they were before to the way they. I mean, for every one of us, I guess we're probably using our homes differently, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, that's what I heard from developers, from agents, and what they hear from their own clients, and kind of hearing from some people that are also on the lookout for a new home. Especially if you're a first-time home buyer and you were in a small apartment, now people are looking for the bigger homes in the suburbs. Not as many looking for urban cores homes where they might enjoy all types of amenities before the pandemic. People are also looking for kitchens that are big, that are comfortable, where they can cook as they shelter in their homes. They're looking for home offices or like small libraries or places where they can kind of retreat and escape kids or other people in the family, so they can work, they can take conference calls. So in terms of square footage, in terms of like layout and like rooms that people want in their homes, that is a bit changing, at least right now.
I want to go into some of what you wrote, I think, in a bit more detail. And you talked about some really critical trends you've seen. I want to walk our way through some of those trends. The first one you noticed was a move towards smaller developments with bigger units. Can you explain what you saw?
Yeah, so a couple of developers talked about that just because, we have, currently we have developments that are 50, 60 floors with, hundreds of residences, and people are getting, they're just not comfortable sharing a building with so many people, sharing elevators with others. So some of the developers, talking with their clients and home buyers, are seeing people looking for buildings that are smaller, that are more boutique type of a development, where they might enjoy a private elevator to their unit, or maybe they will just share the elevator with a couple of other neighbors, where they won't have a bunch of other strangers in their building while they're trying to quarantine, or if they're kind of worried about their health. The fewer the people, the smaller the building itself, the better. That doesn't, as as you and Nigel said, doesn't necessarily mean that they want smaller units. They want bigger units. So they have the whole family comfortable there. They have home office. They have a big kitchen. They have the space to do everything that they have to do daily in one space.
You mentioned a concern about health. Have you seen any technologies that are kind of on the forefront that would address health in the home?
Mm-hmm. Well, the usual are water and air purification systems that a lot of upscale developments already have. Some of them are upgrading them, so they have like stronger systems that can work better, so to speak. But they're also apps and technology that helps regulate the light, the temperature, helps people kind of, even I've heard of applications that help monitor their heart rhythm or bodily temperature. There was, if I'm not mistaken, a new development in Miami that they are using a concierge doctor application. So in every new unit, they are installing an app, like an iPad, I believe, where they can access the services of a health professional if needed.
So one of the things I've noticed, that I live in an apartment block, and some of the last things to come back have been shared amenities. So does that mean that when people are looking at building luxury homes, rather than, hey, there's a shared gym or there's a shared sauna, they're going to look more to do their own utilities effectively?
I think it can go both ways. It's definitely already developers are seeing people asking for upgrades in terms of in-unit amenities, whether it's like fancier spa or maybe a room where they can have their own little gym. But shared amenities I don't think they'll really go away. Some developers are rethinking, gym space. So it's larger, you have different types of equipment clustered together, so you can have like a semi-private workout without really interacting with other people, but still being in a big shared space. Some, private clubs or restaurants, whatever it might be, might, spread out when possible into balconies or open spaces where people can social distance comfortably and being in the open air. So kind of the risk of infection is a little bit reduced.
If there's fewer amenities in condos and they're trying to make the unit sizes or the number of units in a building smaller, do you feel like that will start to push people back to the suburbs? Or do you think it's just they're just going to rethink how they live in the urban space?
I think it's too early to say. We are already seeing people actually, either renting in the suburbs, trying to escape the big city, or thinking about buying in the suburbs. But there are also, industry experts that are kind of cautioning not to over-exaggerate the trends towards suburbanization, that, people will want to come back to city centers where they have all type of restaurants, all type of, social events that they can attend. So I think it all depends on, how long the current pandemic will last, whether we'll come up with a vaccine, and, how fast will people kind of return to a new normalcy. So I don't think that trend to suburbanization will be something that is kind of lasting, and, city cores will just empty out because of it.
What about changes in materials? Do you think people are changing the type of materials they make their homes out of based on what they've learned or experienced over the last few months?
Yep, some people and developers are already thinking about it in terms of using metal or wood that is, nicely polished, so no no germs or grime can accumulate. In terms of fabrics, I guess that's a little bit harder, but there's some newer materials that prevent germs or microbes from living or accumulating. So people are rethinking the materials in their homes towards more polished materials that are easier to clean.
It'll be interesting to see what the side effects of those decisions are. We already are seeing houses become acoustically uncomfortable because people are not putting carpet and soft materials in. So the houses echo and reverberate, which can have negative health impacts. I wonder if you've seen any other things that to you just seems like maybe overreactions or short-term thinking. Is there anything that stood out to you as potentially overreacting?
Yeah, so that's a good point. I think that so there's kind of a little bit of a disagreement in terms of open concept floor plans and how that will what would happen there. And some are like, oh, we're going back to separate rooms. I think that's kind of an overreaction. I don't think that the open floor plans are going away, even if people are now debating them. And I don't think that I don't know whether you would classify that as an overreaction, but a lot of developers are now starting to think about package delivery. So I've heard of people or actually builders and developers thinking about refrigerated package delivery rooms, or ultraviolet rooms where packages can be stored, and so germs are killed, I believe, so people can go and get them that way without much contact. I mean, that sounds great. To me, it's a little bit like out of a sci-fi, going into a huge refrigerator to get your package. I don't know whether, that will be something that's lasting or people will enjoy.
I wonder whether, along with things like refrigerated rooms come security systems and more cameras. Are you seeing an increased focus on the high end of the market looking to protect their properties as well?
When I was reporting and doing that story, no, in terms of, security cameras used for security, it wasn't something that came up or that people were thinking about. Now with, all the riots and protests that are happening, that's, a whole new discussion whether people will actually want more cameras. But I didn't hear or didn't register as something that people are looking now.
What about keyless entry, so people don't have to touch doors? Have you seen any of that?
Yes, there are developers thinking about, either voice recognition or face recognition or, applications where you can open your door on your phone, so you don't have to actually touch anything physically.
Those are obviously very futuristic but practical uses of technology. Did you see any other technologies that you thought that surprised you or you thought were really, really good uses of technology to solve those problems?
Well, I really like or I don't know whether I was really surprised by it, but I like the focus on wellness and the use of technology to, help with, our health and our comfort in the home. So I think that's really cool, just to be able to kind of, see how your heart or how your temperature, how your heart is doing, what's your temperature, and kind of to adjust your home to your bodily needs using technology. I think it's like really cool, and as you said, kind of like out of a sci-fi movie, but for some people it's reality now.
Okay, so I think you've given us a great insight, Dima. We're really grateful for that. Before we let you go, we play the same sort of 3-question game with everybody, so we're going to spring this on you. Not long questions necessarily, but just things we're interested in. And we ask everybody we bring on the podcast the same 3 questions. The first of which is there any home automation technology you have that you couldn't live without?
Oh, that I have. Okay, well, I live in a small apartment, and we don't really have any technology inside our little tiny unit that that is really something to brag about. I feel like I know that some people in New York are still paying their rent with checks. So the fact that we can pay online, every month, I guess, is like the technology that I don't want to give away whenever we move later.
That makes sense. How about our second question is, and often we're asking people who are building homes or designing technology, but as someone who works in the real estate business, what's the most impressive property you've ever seen? Do you remember one?
Well, just because I live in Fargo, so I don't get to, tour a lot of properties in person, but I think that, what's going on in New York with Hudson Yard and the vessel especially, I think it's like really just cool to see that people are already thinking of it as, an iconic place that they want to visit, they want to take pictures. I've been to the Empire State Building and I thought that was super cool. So to see that, a building like that emerge in, my kind of like my lifetime, I don't know whether that sounds stupid or not, but I think it's really cool to see it.
It's an amazing
I
sight.
thought it was silly until I saw it in person. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we would all say the same thing. And finally, the last question we ask is, even in your small apartment, if there was a piece of magic home automation technology that you could just wave a wand and would happen, is there something you'd like to see tomorrow?
Well, I remember, and we talked about that, but as a kid watching those sci-fi movies, and people were able to, with their control, with face recognition or voice recognition, and control what types of features in their home. And I remember, me as a little kid thinking, oh, that's like superpower, it's so cool to have. And so I would like to have something like that in my home, where I can just bark commands, and my refrigerator and my phone and my TV will turn on and whatnot. I think that would be kind of super cool to have.
That'd be brilliant. I think we'd all like that. Listen, Dima, thank you very much. If you'd like to follow Dima more, you can find her work in Forbes, on Washington Post, USA Today, and all over other publications. So, Dima, on behalf of Keith and myself, thank you very much for joining us.